with housing, environmental.
Hey, welcome everyone to the March 4th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Trustees for the Village of Lansing. Jody has started the recording, so I will call our meeting to order. The first order of business is to call the roll. Susan Ainsley.
Present.
Carolyn Greenwald.
Here.
Drew Riedel.
Here.
Wolfgang Bollmer.
You, I assume.
And Monty Hardaway is here. So we have a quorum, and we're in full attendance. Thank you. The next order of business is a public comment period. This is a period where people who are attending the meeting, either online or in the room, can offer public comments on any topic that is not already on the agenda. Do I see anyone or hear of anyone that would like to make a public comment? Hearing none, seeing none, then I will move that we close the public comment period. I need a second.
Second.
Susan seconds. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, well, that's done. Moving on, our next agenda item is to approve our minutes from February 15th, 2024 meeting, the draft minutes Jody sent out. I will move the minutes. Need a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Jody, did you incorporate my changes?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? And all those who approve the draft minutes, February 15th, 2024, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. Thank you. The next topic is budget transfers. So Jody, can you go through those quickly with us?
Yep, there's a transfer needed from clerk's regular contractual to equipment, just because the fire filing cabinet that I got for payroll records is over $500, then it needed to be recorded under a different line item. It's just correcting that. The second one is request to transfer $11,769.56 from A5112.2 to A1640.2, which was leftover money from Oak Crest paving to use for the garage area paving.
Okay, garage area paving, John, can you tell us what the garage area paving entails?
We had it originally appropriated underneath the budget, and we were only able to get the office parking done.
Okay.
So this basically just completes the rest of it up to and around the office.
Okay.
It's been there since 2011.
Okay, yeah, time for a change. All right. I will move the budget transfers that Jody has mentioned. Second?
Second.
Drew seconds. Is there any discussion about those budget transfers? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor of approving the budget transfers requested, say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Jody and John. Okay, next is a request for the waiver of the 30-day municipality notification by Northeast Pizza and Bones located at 23 Cinema Drive. Mike, can you give us a little idea of what that is about?
It used to be Northeast Pizza, used to have a bar in there before they turned into Northeast Pizza. They closed it down using it for dining at this point. They've now, Todai has now got everything established as far as the pizza and the food side of it. Now they want to open the bar back up. They don't have anything outstanding, as I sent to email. There's nothing outstanding as far as permits or anything like that, so I'm recommending that you approve the waiver of the 30-day.
Is there any discussion about this? I don't have any. Do we need to vote on this, Jody?
Yep, you need to approve it and authorize you to sign.
Okay. So I will move that we approve this request for waiver of the 30-day municipality notification by Northeast Pizza and Bones located at 23 Cinema Drive, and that we approve my signature on that request.
Second.
All those, seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Our next order of business is the solar law update. I wanted to thank Carolyn for going through the original document from the planning board and redlining it, and then Natalie for creating the red line for us to read. I tried to do the same thing on my side, but Natalie did a much better job. So basically, Carolyn, why don't you kind of step us through what you've done here?
I didn't bring a copy of it with me, I probably should have.
Most recent, well,
I don't think I even got a copy of that.
Rodney, you have the red line version in front of you?
Yes, would you like to see it?
Do you want me to make copies?
So I started with the definition section, which I felt that if we don't repeat a term within the document, it doesn't need to be refined. And then I looked to, if we did repeat it, when we used it, was there a need for further clarification other than natural language or what our code already defines things as in other places? And I found that, like, for example, like the term glare, I think there's a common understanding. And I did also think that there is a scientific definition for kilowatt and megawatt that scientists can argue about, but I didn't think that we needed to. So we can just use those terms as they're commonly understood without defining them. I think that was our best option. Same with nameplate capacity, which has a scientific definition. Native perennial vegetation has a common understanding. So those were the decisions, pollinator, common understanding. Those were the things that I thought would be better, we'd be better served not defining. And then looking at the tiers, since I had changed since I changed solar energy system to something we defined to something that we didn't define, then I changed it throughout the document to be lowercase s as opposed to uppercase s. Moving through. Mostly I was then making it compatible with not defining certain terms. So the biggest change that I made sort of to the meat of the document is the decommissioning plan. I asked Mike whether he could imagine a scenario where number one needed a decommissioning plan, and he said no. And then I certainly can imagine one for number two, ground mounted, but I did think it was onerous for somebody who wanted to put that on. And so I thought that since the model law does not have one for tier two for ground mounted, then maybe we didn't need to go above and beyond what New York State was recommending in that capacity. And I've been thinking about the recommendation for the 500-foot limitation that the planning board recommended, and I initially said to you guys,
That's defined in the tier two solar.
that would work for me. And I understood from our brief discussion already that some people on this board thought that that was small. And I thought about the protections that we're giving the planning board to make sure that our needs as a village are met in terms of protecting neighborhood properties. And I think that those protections are in there regardless of needing to limit that to 500 feet. So if you wanted to discuss that further, I'm definitely amenable to discussions on the sizing. And is there anything else that I'm not remembering that oh, and then the pitch roofs. I don't know why, but I just felt like I wasn't sold on the solar panels had to be parallel to the roof. I just thought if there's a benefit and it doesn't exceed the height of the building, then I thought that that was also onerous, that you could only apply them at one angle, which is the angle that your roof was built at, not necessarily the best angle for solar capacity. And so. I also,
There's still a maximum distance from the roof, the.
Right, the fire-
Roof to the top of the panel, right?
yes, the fire code, safety is there, and you know, this is just, if you don't want to follow your roof line and you want to pitch it this way or pitch it that way, I thought like,
As long as the either end of the pitch is less than 8 inches.
so then that was, I think that's the only substantive change that I had put in my, these are my suggestions. This is not some sort of like only way to go or best, maybe the best ideas. These are just some ideas that I would throw out there for people to think about.
The one thing that I did is the purpose and intent. We need to think about this document as a standalone. This document is not what the law will say. It is a document that is proposing the law along with the purpose and intent. So in other words, the definitions will not be within the law, they will be within the definition sections of our code. So that's separate.
Okay.
The purpose and intent that is here is a purpose intent pretty much of this document covering the law. So I think you remove the purpose under solar energy systems A because it duplicates what was said in section 1 of this document. And I think that needs to be put back in because then you have the purpose and intent of the solar law itself standalone within the code. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
that makes sense.
So it's pretty much, pretty much,
519A,
yes.
you'd like that seen back in, that?
Right, the A, purpose, and it can say purpose and intent if we need it to, or just purpose, that doesn't matter, but the wording under there, the paragraph, I think is important.
Okay,
I was getting confused in that too, I was thinking, oh yeah, it makes sense, but it's at the beginning of this document, then why can't we just remove it? And I think, well, wait a minute, but this is gonna be the law, and it needs a purpose inside it too.
okay. So I guess what I would like to hear from you, before we go back to the planning board and hear from them about things you already know you like or dislike about this amended version, and things we want to reconsider before we talk to the planning board about what, they obviously liked the document that they produced best, and they thought it was the most clear and had the most protections. And I don't, maybe the clarity, I don't agree with necessarily, but I do agree that it gave the planning board the most amount of protections, but I want to balance that with being onerous on the villagers to achieve a goal that is within reason to produce solar energy. So I'm just trying to balance that, but I'm not saying that more protections are a tragic misstep. I'm just saying that this maybe is a balance that we should consider, and also we can consider the original very carefully as well.
Are there comments from the trustees?
I mean, yeah, so I understand that we can't do all these things, but, you know, some of the things that I would ideally want to change, we could talk about the 500 square foot thing, because I was asked to do that, so I should agree on that.
Right.
Should we, I mean, the fees and the permit fees, do they, can those be reduced? Can those be eliminated for certain people, depending on how the tiers go? I think that it's possible that, you know, we want to do something, a comprehensive plan, perhaps, to encourage it. You know, what else, that kind of takes away some of the encouragement, particularly if you're pushing some people who aren't paying for permits now into paying for permits. If the main thrust is to kind of manage the control of that, then, you know, maybe you can kind of have some trade-off by eliminating the fees.
So what would the fees be now? They would be,
Permit fees,
would they be,
special permit and the building permit.
would they be tied to the cost of the project?
Yes, still that cost.
It's not, so do we want to then maybe tie it to the time that it takes you to review and not to the cost of the project? Because maybe you shouldn't be punished for doing something larger if it costs you the same amount of time.
Right.
Maybe, so maybe that's something,
Then you gotta reduce building permit fees also?
same reason.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. It sets a precedent, potential precedent.
Yep. Yeah.
What are the fees? Are the fees similar to the building permits and so forth, Mike, on the solar panels? yeah, exactly the same. They're the same, okay, all right.
They're, sorry, so they're the same for the building permit and this, if you do a special permit and a building permit combined, they're the same, or no?
No, they're calculated the same, you have to do twice.
Yeah, yeah.
For, once for the special permit, once for the building permit. Fees are the same.
It's like if you were,
If it's $75
I mean,
for the special permit, it's
yeah.
$75 for the building permit, it's $150 total.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how we fall out, if someone was to put 10 solar panels on the ground, they have to get 2 permits then, pay for 2 permits. I just think that's,
Special permit.
so if you're gonna push them to certain groupings, it'd be nice to kind of, if it, rather than just have a hammer on these things. That's just one thought. The other thing, let me just see what, I saw in some other ones that the trees, this gets a little more complicated, but if someone cut some trees down to put renewable energy or solar panels in, that may actually have a beneficial effect net for carbon than having a fossil fuel powered house and leaving trees up. So I like Ithaca has a complicated formula, but it says that modified or waived. I think you could have some specificity on that.
Where are you looking?
I'm looking on environmental resources. Let me see under this outline here. Oh, E2, would it be E6A trees? So,
Oh. Okay, so what would you like to see?
well, I was wondering if we could have some kind of change for, I mean, I don't want to get overly complicated, but we could. But I'm saying if there were a way to think about, if someone's installing renewable energy, that they'd get some kind of break on the,
So with the sidewalks
Yeah.
law, after we said
Right.
the planning board can be modified or waived, then we had a list of reasons that they could. So you're
Yeah.
thinking here that we need
yeah, and I just saw the city
another
of Ithaca
section
had
here
something that
saying,
was complicated.
reasons for waiver
Yes.
may include, and then you want to say,
The more they install, the more that you'd have a break, because the
So-
more the less carbon they're burning.
okay, so
Yeah.
I think that that's reasonable to put something in there that lists reasons why the planning board would modify or waive the tree.
Right,
Without limitation.
Yeah.
all right.
Okay, so that's a good idea.
I would also say for the fencing requirements, I don't know, on some of these big projects, we may want to allow space for wildlife to cross. You can have, there's certain ways to do that. I am not an
Sorry,
expert on that.
where section are you
This is
now?
on section 9, or sorry, let me get the outline here. This is under tier 3 solar energy systems with the bigger ones. And this would be, let's see, B9, fencing requirements.
So something may be
Yeah.
linked to the National Electric Code, though, so that may be out of our purview.
Yeah, I do know that there are, so
Mike has a comment.
and I'm not an expert on fencing, but I do know from my experience that in places like Arizona, that they have fencing, they're altering fencing to allow wildlife to go underneath or go through,
right.
rather than create barriers.
So again, we
maybe
can add
we
something
may
in there.
want
It
to-
says as required by the NEC, and it's like, if it's
Yeah.
not required,
Mike has a
then,
comment that maybe could.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I'm just gonna say, most of your large
Yeah.
properties will have fencing around it because there is some type of, like electrical storage areas on those.
Yes.
And I want people to mess with.
Absolutely.
Everything right in.
Absolutely, yeah, so that wouldn't change, it's just that there's certain ways to fence it, and I could look more into it if you want, but where you could, small gaps where not people can get in, but where some animals can cross through. And also maybe you have the fences so that you'd have a corridor. It depends on how big it is, and if we think that would be a concern with, I don't know if we really, with deer, I'm not sure, but that would be something that,
so we can also add something in there. As required by the NEC, that's done, whatever
Yes,
they're gonna
you have to
require,
do
we're
that.
gonna do that.
That's
But then you can put in a second statement that says, when otherwise allowed, considerations will be made for
right,
fencing that allows for
Yeah,
crossing, if you wanted.
something along those lines. Under validity and abandonment, I just know that I think of validity and abandonment, I'm not sure, is this just for tier 3 at this point? I'm not 100% clear. No. Is that decommissioning? Because this is, it looks like before that it gets installed, so
Yeah,
it was unclear.
That's applicable to all tiers.
All tiers, okay, right. So I just know from getting my own solar panels put in, It can be a very long delay.
Okay.
And this delay, actually, this time period seemed actually short, like you try to hit the ground
Okay.
running and no fault of your own. I think for tier 1 and tier 2, maybe that should be a longer
How long
period
did
of
yours
time,
take just for,
like 18 months.
So we could put in 24
Yeah.
months, I think
I
that's
mean,
fine.
It took, at that time, it was like during the pandemic, and it was like, no, I don't know if I can get this from China, like,
Okay, well,
so.
that's probably why.
That might have changed, but it's also like you have no control, if they're busy installing, the installers don't come, and there's nothing you can do about it, so it seems as a residential homeowner, you don't want to have to be going to the,
Mike, do you think
Planning
it's
board can do
problematic from your point of view, if the building permit was valid for 24 months?
Well, it says,
it is
that-
valid.
it says that they can extend it for an additional 12 months.
how easy is that, though?
Well, the request cannot be unreasonably withheld by the
Yeah.
village.
Oh.
So they'd have to, how would they have to, what
Just
process
come
would
and
they do?
ask
Again,
the planning board for an extension. They could do it via Zoom.
so that if
Oh,
the.
they have to ask the planning board, they couldn't just ask Mike?
By the village, so yes, Mike would give it.
Yeah, your special permit's gonna be for 3 years.
Okay,
The building permits for 12.
1 year with the possibility of extending it to 6 months period.
Can you extend it?
I can extend it, but they still have to pay for the extension.
oh, so you have to pay for it as well, okay.
Is that like a whole new permit fee?
It's the same prevent fee as it was before, as long as nothing has changed.
Okay, okay.
And if it states in our code that as long as there's been, it's up to my discretion, as long as there's been some progress made and it just hasn't been like abandoned or whatnot. I just
Okay.
forgot about it.
Okay, so hypothetically, if we don't want there to be 2 fees, could we make this valid for 18 months? Would that be problematic for you?
That's completely it.
Like, what problems would that cause, I guess? What are we worried about if it's like, oh, it's 12 months and they haven't had it installed yet, and the supplier and the installers just haven't come out to the property yet? I want to make sure that after 12 months, we have this check, because.
No problem, so let's just make it
Yeah.
18, and then
Yeah, we can.
you can still extend it.
I feel comfortable with 18. I think most people that start something like this, they want to finish this.
Oh, yeah.
as soon as possible.
Oh, yeah, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be, yeah.
It's going to be obvious at some point who's doing the abandoning.
Yeah.
Is it the owner, or is it the providers?
Yeah, and you just don't want to be like, as a homeowner, like, now I gotta go to the planning board, now I gotta pay another fee, then it just adds to the aggravation, and
Right.
I'm not sure what problem we don't want to have to wait month 14 or something, I'm not sure.
Do we want to do 18 months with a potential 18-month extension, just double both? So it gives them a full 3 years, which is the requirement?
I wouldn't say no to that.
I think
that
it's
may be a little
fine.
long, but that's fine, yeah.
Okay. 18 with another 12 then.
That'd be fine too. I think that's long enough, because I think, it's not gonna take, what is that, almost,
Hopefully,
2.5 years.
yeah, 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, since this is a new law, we
Yeah.
need to monitor it. If it becomes obvious that supplies and contractors are going to delay for a long time, we can always come back as an afterthought and fix this if they really need more time.
yeah, and I just think a little more wiggle room up front.
Up front, yeah, no, I agree, that's fine.
I mean, I'm not sure what the concern would be for 12 months versus 18 otherwise. Right.
Well, I was just thinking 18 plus 18 is 3 years, and Mike was saying that was what was the building permit? Or a special permit?
It's special permit's 3 years.
3 years, okay. Building permit's only 12 months? Okay. And is any problem from your side giving an extension of additional 12 months, or 18 and 12? Starting with 18 and giving it 12?
I don't have any issue with it, it's,
Is any building permit good for 12 months?
I'm sorry,
Is any building permit only good for 12 months?
anyone that I issue.
Yeah,
It doesn't seem that long, but
so then this would be changing that to make it, only these building permits would be good for 18,
only solar panel installations,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Okay. Do
just a
the,
note.
thank you, yeah, that's a good point. So a normal building permit, it can be extended for an additional 12 months also, and that's the maximum right now? I would say then, let's not set a precedent and leave this alone and monitor it. If it really becomes a problem, then we can look at changing this and probably changing all of our building codes, or building.
Maybe, I think also, is there a way to waive fees for someone who's waiting to install the panels for 12 months, and then install, I mean, rather than pay the permit fee again.
I think the only concern with that is if Mike has to go out on multiple inspections during that time.
You'd have nothing, nothing's, I guess the concern, if you'd only need to inspect if it's partially installed, right? Or is it, because what would you inspect?
Would you inspect a solar installation
Hasn't
in
been
stages or only at completion, Mike?
Probably in stages.
Okay,
Most of the work, though, is done with plan review and everything, and there's really not that much trucks going out for actual physical inspections. Most of the work is done up front in
Okay.
areas.
okay,
My time.
okay, all right. So that there would not be a problem then generally if we allowed an extension of 12 months. If we waive the fee for an extension, would we also be setting a precedent for our building permits?
And I don't think you want to discount Mike's time
I
or the
agree.
village resources
Yeah.
by waiving fees.
I agree. Let's monitor this, Drew. Let's pass this with 12 and 12 and monitor it. And if it really is an issue, then we can come back and address it and see if we can figure it out throughout for all of our permits.
Yeah.
Because quite frankly, the state of current state in the world, it's hard to get supplies and it's hard to get people to do the work too. So we may be at a point in history where we've got to change them all.
Right.
But let's not change them at this point for this one law.
All right.
Is that okay?
And then as far as the 500 square foot, I was asked to do that, so I kind of looked at it a fresh set of eyes, so to speak. And the first thing I pulled up was the New York State model law. And tier 1 is in general agreement with our law, except ground-mounted solar energy systems are pulled out of tier 1 into tier 2. So the like with like that's in the model law is moved into tier 2. And the tier 1 law went up to 4,000, which seems it's quite big. So that's the first thing I noticed. And then New York residential PV systems can go up to, you can have 25 kilowatt maximum capacity. So if you had efficient solar panels, that would be 62 max solar panels, which is 1,305 square feet. So if about a 500 square foot ground level solar, if it has pretty good positioning, would power a 1,000 to 1,500 square foot house that's fully electrified and maybe has a electric car. Otherwise, they're going to have to bring in power from the utilities.
Okay.
And so forth. So it takes a lot of solar panels to power a fully electrified house.
Sure.
About heating, cooling, all that stuff. It may be more cost effective in the long for the person, but it's a lot of electricity, obviously.
Right.
And that's ideally going to happen more and more, and because it's cost effective, it should happen more and more. And there's going to be a lot more grid lines that would have to be brought in. So if people can have it at their own locations, less grid infrastructure is being built. It was also part of the thinking. So if I'm thinking about an individual who has a house that maybe doesn't have a well-positioned roof, the engineer or the company comes in and says, this is a much better location on the ground, you get a lot more electricity that way, for these 20 panels or so. I don't know, I'm looking at this and I'm like, why are we pulling this tier 1 into tier 2? But also if someone wants to, a 3,000 square foot house to be fully electrified and using solar panels and kind of breaking even would be the 25 kilowatt max.
Well, I can answer that question for you, and I think I tried to explain it the other day, which is that why are we pulling this from tier 1 to tier 2? And the reason was that we wanted there to be a non-issue category that was not going to require a special permit. And the initial people who were looking into the solar panel law felt that anything on the ground was beneficial for the planning board to look at, because we have seen some that have been misplaced on properties, that the planning board really wanted an opportunity to control the location, to make it not unsightly for the neighbors, to make sure there was buffering, and to just make sure it was in with character and appropriate for the space. And the only way to do that is a special permit, and we didn't want to have to get a special permit for roof mounted. So we separated ground and roof.
So when you say misplaced, though, what do you mean by location misplaced?
Like placed right on your neighbor's Like if your property is here and your neighbor's house is right here and you put them there.
Isn't
which
there,
ha-
what about the setback rules? That's
Yeah, okay, the
fine.
setback's 15 feet, you put it there.
Okay.
Still, is that really like neighborly? Not really.
I mean, I don't know, I mean,
Well, it
they
happened
wouldn't bother
twice,
me.
which is why,
really, but,
okay,
yeah,
but it happened twice, which is why, and that's a lot in our little village.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I don't know, I just kind of think in some ways, that's a matter of opinion or priorities. I kind of see it as, allowing people to put in solar and their property and power their own house is important. I don't see it, like 0 to 500 doesn't
totally
seem very
agree.
big to me, but that's.
but if the planning board is not going to be dissuading that person from having their solar house, and they're gonna be
Right.
really thrilled to see them there. And they're just gonna ask a few questions about where it is.
So changing the location and so forth might change the capacity of those panels, or putting buffering around might actually interfere with the
It's true,
solar. And
it's
that
true, I mean, it's a
costs.
compromise.
Yeah.
It's a compromise between the village goals of being, having a certain neighborhood feel in certain places, and having certain property values of your neighbors respected with solar energy, which I very much want.
Yeah, and in the long run, where's the energy gonna come from? Are we gonna build more power lines? Are we gonna not really go green and just, the unfortunate thing is there's no, like, everybody's happy with, we gotta make hard choices kind of going forward, not just this village, but, so like, yeah, it's either gonna be solar energy, or we're gonna bring it from a farm solar array, which has other issues as.
The planning board is
articles sent
going
around.
to look at the ground-mounted system that they're looking at and want that person to maximize their capacity within small criteria that they need to look for with regard to the neighboring properties. It's not that they don't want them, and they do. The whole reason we're having this law is, we really do want people to find a way forward for alternative energy. So I do think that, for me, the tier 1 and tier 2 with the ground and the roof divided is an important, crucial part of the law that I would not want to lose. Although, like I said, for a lot of it, I'm very flexible. It sounds like you're just.
No, I'm just trying to understand,
Yeah.
because it doesn't seem that big, but.
The size,
I have a hard time, like, with everyone's got, you can agree to disagree, but everyone has.
Yes, but the size, I can definitely come around to doing something larger, because
For tier
again, I
two, yeah.
feel like the planning board is gonna be there to look at it.
Right.
So
I
with
feel
that
like-
protection,
right.
if you thought
So-
500 is too small,
So
convince me of that.
when I kind of put this out there, I thought at least going up to 1325 for tier 2 made sense, because that's a residential household trying, that's kind of what they could do net metered if they can't put it on the roof or whatever. Going up to that level, because you still have to get a special permit. That could be one way to go. The other way is to kind of have that, and I thought, yeah, we could maybe do the 2-tier, like have 5, put it back with like, 0 to 500, and then go up to 1325, or 2,000 I put, because I didn't know, 1325 seems kind of a little bit like an odd number to put out there, but, and I looked at some other towns that went to 2,000, so I went to.
If folks want to go larger on that, I mean, I can understand. I also think the planning board
Yeah.
put some time and thought into it.
That's a pretty big, in some ways, I didn't want to do more than 1325, because hearing the concerns, if people want that big of a capacity, they should probably get efficient panels, 'cause that's a lot of solar panels. If they get inefficient ones, it'd be a lot bigger space.
Right.
So if they're gonna be efficient, 1325 should be big enough, because I didn't want to go 1305, because it may be, it's got a little bit of, anybody that builds something knows they're not gonna, it never works out exactly the way, you need a little bit of wiggle room.
But let's leave the size option open until
Yeah.
we have a joint meeting with the planning board, and let's
Right.
all discuss that at the same time. For
That's
the
fine.
sizes. I think that's good. I mean, it's a good discussion. I think we all want clean energy. We definitely want efficient energy, especially in highly residential areas, because the smaller footprint with the maximum output is best, or maximum collection, I should say.
Bonnie, before we hear from Susan and Wolfgang, do you mind if I ask just Natalie some questions? So before we go forward with maybe considering my changes, I really want to hear from you if you think that there's some legal reasons why some of them are fine and some of them are less fine.
My concerns are the removal of the decommissioning plan as a whole for tier 2 removes commercial roof mounted. And I think that is something that we may want to consider, especially with the thought that solar panels may be going on the mall.
So could we move commercial roof mounted to tier
Or,
3?
you know, put a, not necessarily tier 3, but a decommissioning plan only as it relates to commercial properties.
Okay, I can be on board with that.
Residential being too onerous.
Okay,
Then reworking the validity and abandonment section to imagine there not being a decommissioning plan and you wanting to entice a residential owner to remove a ground-mounted panel. How do you do that without a decommissioning plan? What's your leverage at that point?
and why do I want them to remove it?
They stopped using it, it's fallen out of favor, it's just an eyesore at this point, and they've discontinued use. Do you want to make them remove it? Do you want to leave the eyesore? Does it become a violation that Mike cites them for, and they have 30 days to remove it, and then they start incurring fees? Just something to think about if we don't have a decommissioning power with ground-mounted residential. Also roof-mounted, but ground-mounted, I think, is the bigger concern. And then if there are decommissioning plans, and this goes more towards commercial, so I guess it wouldn't be such an issue, because there's more due diligence in commercial closings, that any sort of requirements you put on these permits are gonna affect the subsequent owners. And I do have concerns about them being aware of those requirements. Those are my thoughts.
I was noticing under the validity and abandonment, subparagraph 3, upon cessation of electricity generation of a solar energy system on a continuous basis for 12 months, the village may notify in writing the owner and/or operator of the solar energy system to implement the decommissioning plan. It doesn't say which tier.
Because this was, originally it was written that all 3 tiers
Yes.
would
Yeah.
have the possibility of a decommissioning.
Yeah, I just feel like the term decommissioning plan is onerous.
Yeah.
And maybe there's just a simpler way to say, ground-mounted solar plants that are not in use shall be removed at the, within 30 days of notification.
Just like if it's a
Right.
falling apart structure on their property, like a barn.
But not having like a section called
Yeah,
decommissioning
you
plan.
wouldn't- if I put up a barn, I don't need to have a decommissioning.
Yeah, and I just like rework it if there's
Yeah.
no, it's just a matter of rewording it to make sure that the village has some
Yeah,
mechanism of then
Right.
following up if an owner doesn't do it, because if we just say, remove that solar panel, and they
Yeah.
don't.
right.
Yeah,
But to me, it seems it'd be nice to treat it equivalent to something falling apart on your property. Generally.
okay. Okay, well, that doesn't sound like you think it's completely offline, which I wanted to do before we started talking about nuanced issues that might not be relevant if we don't actually go with this version, so. And then there's also a question of, after talking to the planning board, maybe people have different opinions and we might not go with this version, so I don't know how much we want to actually work on getting the language perfect before that conversation, or wait till after.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm fine either way.
Susan, do you have any comments on this?
No, but all your points are well thought out and taken, and I'm sure the planning board is happy to have them, with a fresh set of eyes, and because you worked from the beginning with the intent of creating something called the solar law. Yeah, I think just hashing out, understanding the legal requirements and cleaning up the language. I think going forward, I'm looking forward to having it done.
So me too.
Wolfgang, do you have anything?
Well, yes, I do have a lot, but not so sure whether it's beneficial to discuss, honestly, right now, following your discussion.
Okay, you will still have a chance to provide feedback and input once we have the joint meeting with the planning board too. So
No, in general, the whole tier 1, tier 2, whatever, in my opinion, as I'm used to solar panels on roofs and whatever, coming from Europe. For me, it's much more important. Is it personal use? Is it personal use and feedback to the grid? Which obviously, as the law is written, with 100% of your personal consumption as a limit. Obviously, New York State doesn't support feedback to the grid. Or is it commercial? These are, for me, the three most important categories, and I don't find them in the tiers, honestly. So that's one of my basic issues I have.
Well,
that
that
would mean,
actually fits nicely with what Natalie was saying about maybe we should move commercial roofs to tier 3. So then that does make sense to separate residential and commercial. I think they are very different.
Yeah, but the whole thing about you put solar panels on wherever you roof your barn, wherever you have space, and then you feed it back into the grid. First of all, it requires a permit from the utilities, but ultimately, that's in my opinion pretty beneficial. And over in Europe, for example, they give you a guaranteed rate of feedback if you get the permit from the utility. So the US obviously is not at that point. So that's one of my issues I'm having. So the whole categorization is not to what I would consider as important. And the second one, I said that last time, the whole subjectivity of at the discretion of the planning board, I'm definitely not in favor of that.
Anything else? Okay, do we want to try to have a joint meeting at our meeting on Monday, the 18th?
Do you want to give the planning board an opportunity to review the red line?
Right.
Before we do that, do we want to make some of the changes that we talked about tonight? Or do we not want to?
Premature to jump to
That's what I was
meeting.
thinking, is let's get into it. Let's give the planning board this red line and let them go through it too, then we can have a general discussion.
Give them notes on things that we're considering changing, because for the same
I know,
reasons.
yeah.
I think we should make some potential edits, just like for parentheses here.
Comments?
Even edits
Yeah.
as you understand.
Yeah.
them, as you're
Yeah,
talking
I think we
about,
should
maybe
clarify it
propose
before we give it to them, because it's already so complex.
Okay, we can do that. That would probably push the joint meeting out a little farther to make sure we get all of our comments in. Considering that we are all in the midst of a budget cycle, which is fairly significant too. So, okay, so we will add comments, clarifying comments. To the red line version. Before, I'm just making a note to myself. Before giving the planning board a copy. And give them time to read through that and prepare for joint meeting. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You want your copy back, Natalie? Thank you, that was very helpful.
Send you this copy.
Didn't know I was presenting.
Always gotta be ready, Carolyn.
I thought that it was.
I'll just look through the minutes and make comments, and I can send them back to Carolyn to see if I missed anything.
Thank you.
I took notes also, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think I know what changes we'll recommend.
I
mean, more changes that we'll recommend.
Excuse me, I think I would recommend, when you make those changes, send it to all of us.
Yep.
And we'll all review, and then that, because we might have picked up
Yep.
something that got missed. Carolyn might not. Don't put all the onus on the both of you, put it on all of us.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Our next topic is to start our preliminary budget discussions. Jody has provided the expenditures revenues start cheater sheet, so to speak, with details of the numbers that we've collected so far. And she's presented, I guess this current copy of the budget would reflect those numbers. Is that correct, Jody?
So yeah, so what this one is, it is our budget program. You fill in the numbers and it balances it for you and tells you where you are. And then it feeds into the accounting program. This written one is something that I have created every year for you guys, because just looking at these numbers on here, you're like, what is that? I don't know what it is. But you guys don't know the codes.
We don't have them.
So I go through and give you a detail of every single code and what it's about.
Right. So do we want to go through each of these line items one by one, or do we want to take some time and adjust it and come back at Thursday's meeting with questions? Is that okay, Jody?
I'm fine, whatever you want to do.
Okay,
I think probably make more sense to wait till Thursday.
Okay.
Chance to go through it.
okay. That would make the Thursday noon meeting on Thursday a little bit lengthy. It could.
It's okay. Which Thursday are we meeting?
That's
14th?
the 14th,
I
10 days.
have to double check that I have it. Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
I agree. Please go through these as carefully as you can, and can you send this to us electronically?
Yes, I can. So let me give you a little suggestion if you're gonna go through and do this on your own. So you can look and you can see from, this one that doesn't have any details. It has a lot of information, so it can tell you what the adopted budget was from the year before and the modified
Right.
budget, and then what the proposed budget is. So and there's a percentage change down the right-hand side there, so you can kind of see how it compares to previous years. And you see something like, oh my gosh, it went up 1,000%, why? At that point, go to my explanation, and you can see. And also, if you want to know the explanation of this current year's budget, that is online under budget. Like if you just go to our website, pull up on the budget, and I scanned the actual budget and this also from last year.
Yes.
So if you want to kind of look at that, you can.
And I'm going to propose, do the same thing this year when we finish our budget. Put,
I always do.
some of them, I know some of them did not have it. So this will
I've
be
got
sure.
all of them.
Okay, we don't have to worry about the past ones, but future, I found that very useful, go back and, because
I've got you all spoiled.
I know. Again, it's exactly right, but I did find, going back, the explanations from a prior budget year with the expenditures and revenues starting sheet to remind me, because it started the discussion, and sometimes the numbers would change by the end, but at least the starting point was here, and a lot of work goes into this, so, yeah. Okay, are there questions about what needs to be done, what each of you need to do? Okay. Go through with your own perspective, your conversations you had with staff during this cycle to this point, and see if there's anything missing or questionable, or if you just don't know what it is. Those are the types of things that we will discuss on Thursday's meeting. Thank you, Jody, for putting all of this together.
Jody,
Yes?
is there any way you can send me the document, because I didn't get it?
Yeah, it's here at your place setting, but I'm gonna send it electronically to all of you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next order of business are my comments. My comments are that the budget is the important thing to do right now. I have nothing else to really say. Go through, look, and come in Thursday prepared to talk, and spend a good portion of that meeting discussing that. We will still go through our standard status updates, and then after that, so status updates Thursday, try to be crisp if possible, so that we have more time for the budget.
Set a timer.
Yeah.
Crisp.
Are you accusing him of not, you're accusing him of being not crisp?
No, 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 no.
Or is he accusing you of being not crisp? I'm not sure which direction that's supposed to flow.
Talk about this outside.
So anyway, just be prepared, and if it takes a while, that's good. We need to have a good discussion on the budget to get it, the numbers finalized, and proceed with the schedule that Jody has sent to us. We need to have this passed by the end of April. Sounds like a lot of time, but it's really not.
And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
I would recommend, if you've got questions that you send to Jody, send to all of us. Unless it's something extremely personal that you don't want us to know about. But it related to the budget, any question could raise someone else's, a radar for someone else too.
I have a question. How much wiggle room is there with this when you're done with the whole thing? Like, every dollar is accounted
Well,
for?
we don't know what the appropriated cash surplus is yet. We are not gonna have really good numbers until after the bid comes back on the 14th.
Okay,
And then it's gonna take,
so there might be cuts.
yeah, we might need to do some cuts.
Okay,
Because well, if you look in here, I think I put the amount of the increases in each of the budgets. Let's see, where is it? Yeah, so like the general budget went up 21.92%. The water budget went up 57.07%. The sewer went down just because we went from doing that, so that went down by 58%, but that's because of the sewer project. And that's when we took big monies out of the reserve. We're definitely gonna need to talk about water rates, increasing them, because just with our failing water system, I mean, it's 30 years, over 30 years old, so it's starting to get to that point where you don't, I mean, we've been really good about not borrowing money, but if we keep spending at the rate we're doing right now, we're gonna have to borrow money.
okay, so if we don't want to borrow money, we need to,
We do not want to,
we don't want to borrow money, we need to.
no.
I retire early,
We've
yeah.
given you early retirement.
So,
Okay,
All right.
but right now, in this budget, no salaries have been changed. And the benefits that go along, obviously, that hasn't been changed. It's at the current rate of $1.50, the rate hasn't been increased. Although your assessment increases every year, so it does get to be more, but, so that's where all that is.
Our tax
the
rate.
assessment's supposed to go up 20%, although,
Well,
I looked at mine, and for my house in the village, it only went up
you
3%.
have to remember that we're based on the previous year's assessment. So,
Okay,
next year, so next year it will look even better, right?
right,
Each year it goes up.
but it might not be 20% is what I'm saying, because mine wasn't
Yeah.
20%, it's 3%.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
If you're me, it definitely,
So our taxable, if you look in here, so if, talking about taxes, A1001, you can see that the taxable value for 2024 increased from 595 million in rough to 622 million, rough round numbers. So that'll tell you the difference.
okay,
So you can have the same rate of 150, but yet you're actually bringing more because the assessment.
Right.
And more businesses or residents or whatever
Right.
coming in.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, would there ever be, if the rates were 1%, or if you're doing a long-term investment, rather than collect all the money now from current people living in the village and the benefits spread out to people over 30 years, it would almost mean, is there ever a situation where would that be more equitable, kind of the benefits being strung out 30 years rather than?
You mean by taking out a loan?
Yeah, I mean, is there ever an instance where we would borrow?
Interest rates were really, really
Like
low.
when they were before in the last, I mean.
Yeah, but we have enough money. Why borrow when you can pay for what you're doing?
If it's,
And
well,
you're-
because taxpayers have to pay for it now.
Yeah, but they're benefiting also.
But if the rate's really low, if the benefit comes out, if the benefit's 30 years from now, they're not benefiting, if it's over 30 years.
Most of this stuff is not benefiting you 30 years down the road.
Yeah.
Historically,
The water projects or anything like that, or?
I mean, you're using it right from day one for your benefit.
Yeah, but it's spread out over 30 years, so the benefit, just like the
Then-
payments would be.
Yeah, but you're constantly improving. Yeah, it's a wash, yes.
I think the fiscal responsibility that the village has shown for the past 30 years has been commendable, and we should aim to continue on our path. Although, that being said, there's been some very funky banking in the last couple of years, but I think I'm proud of the fact.
Funky banking?
Yeah, I mean, with interest rates and mortgage
Oh,
rates.
Well, and you have to remember, this is everybody's wish list.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily have to give everybody this, you know?
And
No.
that's part of our
This is just-
discussion.
I don't think you should borrow for general, I don't think you should borrow when interest rates are high, I don't think, if it's a long-term investment, or if it's really low interest rates.
Really low interest rates. Make it different. But right now.
No, I'm not,
So the
But-
14th,
yeah,
we get and then
New meeting on the 14th.
the meeting's the 14th, but the information also comes, the bid also comes in on the 14th. 14th.
Right, comes in on 14th, the bid come in on the 14th
No,
or
it's
13th?
12, I think.
Oh.
13.
Perfect.
So we'll have
Have
that, yeah, but getting that a day before, it's, I'm not gonna have it put in your budget for you.
No. But we'll know within reason,
Have a little more,
A little more.
right?
Yeah.
We'll have some knowledge, which will be helpful, because we need that piece, for sure.
Yes. Okay, go around the table. Carolyn?
Okay, so starting with the rec partnership, they had a meeting and showed how their programming has changed over the last couple of years and how the participation levels have been. And they looked really, really proud of their number. They were really, really proud of how they've come back from COVID and the participation for the youth across the county in their programming. And then I, of course, looked at all their numbers and the village participation levels to see if village students or youth were really benefiting from the programs. And there's some programs that we didn't do, and there were some programs where we were like 10 to 15% of the participants. It kind of was depending on the program, but then at the end of the day, the numbers came out to 3%, which is the number of our population that's in the county. So it actually kind of came out exactly where it was supposed to. We're 3% of the people who participate in the program, and we were 3% of the users. Within the actual programming that changed, I mean, one thing that would be nice is some of the municipalities have their own softball team, and we don't have one, and I was like, kind of jealous. I'm like, oh, we have got a field, could we field a team, But,
do the town,
what?
the town has some.
Town has one, and Newfield has one, and they,
Town is struggling to get teams.
oh, really?
Together. a
But
team.
you can go to the youth bureau and have your team from your community, or you can just go and sign up, which is what my kids did. But it's kind of nice when you have that community to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be on the village team, like, anyway, whatever. We do a lot of ice skating. We did not swim in the pool that often, although we did swim in the pool, but we didn't actually buy the annual passes for the village. Villagers did not buy the annual pool passes, but they swam. So we had good representation amongst the programs. They were really, really happy with how things have turned out. Their new programs are doing well, and they were just very, very positive about the programs. I was really pleased to see that they're feeling like they're successful right now. So I wanted to tell you guys about that. I wanted to tell you that I went to the town board meetings, the last couple, and at the last one, they had a report on apparently they're commissioning an open space conservation plan from Collier Engineering. And they're also commissioning a gap analysis between their comp plan and their current zoning, also by Collier Engineering. And I was not aware that they were professional companies that help municipalities with their code analysis, and that's something that we've been talking about in the planning board, talking about for ages. So I chased the guy out the door to ask him about his costs and what they offer. And he basically said, their biggest plan analysis that involves like public engagement and, comprehensive studies runs around $70,000, but you could do like a code basic gap analysis and just see where your code doesn't match up within itself for $10,000. And if your plan needs updating, they do that also, although we're gonna do that in-house. So I just thought that was interesting to know that there was this kind of company and these kind of services are out there. And maybe this is not the year to spend that kind of money. It sounds like we have a tight budget to consider, but I thought that getting that professionalized on our code at some point was a really good idea, so that's why I chased him down.
Would it be possible, do you think, to have them come in and give us a presentation on what they can and can't do?
I mean, he was very receptive to talking to me, so I think they would present, if you guys are interested. Let's see how the budget goes.
Well, of course, but it doesn't hurt to at least hear what they can do so we can.
Okay, I'm
Budget.
happy to send an email to the man, John something man. Yeah, I've got his card, I grabbed his card, so I thought that was interesting.
We already have a huge list of things that we know we have to fix, so why do we have to hire somebody to tell us what we already know?
I think that the professional point of view is they're really good at quickly making the code comprehensive and that's not the word, not comprehensive, just internally consistent. It could be that our code is small enough and we have a good enough idea that we don't have to, but it could be that professionalized would be helpful in facilitating what the planning board now is currently trying to do, which is to update the code. I'm just saying what I saw. So anyway, there was also a fairly large discussion about safe streets for all and ways to use it. And then I was thinking, Ronnie, I wanted to ask you about whether Safe Streets for All would be interested in fixing the intersection at Cahigats Road in 34B.
It's on our list.
It is.
And I'm waiting to hear back about meeting with the company that's helping put together the safety action plan. That one is definitely.
But it sounded, when I was listening, I was thinking to myself, like, well, will they pay for us? And it sounded like that was the kind of thing that they were looking to do.
What will happen is the safety action plan will help us list things we want to see done, and we will become a member of the safety action plan. I know I told you this before, but let me.
Okay.
At that point, once that safety action plan is finished and submitted by the county and all of the participating municipalities to the federal government, we will become much more likely to get federal grants. So at that point, we could say, we want to do that intersection. What kind of a grant structure can you provide for us that would pay for that? Another thing would be the suggested sidewalk on Cayuga Heights Road. That's going to be probably a multi-million-dollar project. That's another one.
I had an idea about that today, I was thinking about, which I was.
So, yeah, I have the list of that intersection, also the 13 Warren Road intersection is bad for pedestrians. There are many, and I've got the list that I started, and I've asked all of you to input. I will share it with you again, and if you think of anything, and then during our meeting, our one-on-one meeting, those are the types of things that we present to them, and they will help incorporate that in our, what I'm calling the Village of Lansing appendix to the county safety action plan. And because they're listed in there, we won't be restricted to just those things, but those will be targets that we could easily request grants for.
Okay.
Not necessarily win, but request.
So the last topic is that I think you guys know I'm working with the town on their trails plan. And they did get, are you guys familiar with Jonas Falls?
Yes.
Apparently it's a big hiking area and it's very exciting because they got the easement today for that property. And they're very close to starting that portion of the trail in terms of like having the exact pathway laid out.
And continue further.
And had to have a walking and viewing area and connecting it to the rest of the town trails. So there's been some nice progress there, so that's good to hear. And because I'm working on the trails, I've been talking to different municipalities about the trail building. I spoke with Bob Beck in Dryden, and I spoke with John Talbot in the town of Ithaca, just about their trails and whatever. And that got me thinking about the Cayuga Heights Road, how to traverse all of those, narrow winding places.
Right.
like right around Shannon, right after Shannon Park, right north of Shannon Park, because I was thinking about the fact that they got the Syracuse Department of Transportation to support the bridge that they're building in Dryden, that $3 million bridge for their trail. And I was thinking, what if instead of trying to widen the road in any kind of way, what if we just put bridges, like pedestrian bridges across all of those gullies?
That's definitely a possibility.
And have Syracuse Department of Transportation put them in for us.
I think that might be a stretch.
It might-
Well, I asked him, I was like, why does Syracuse Department of Transportation care about your trail in Dryden?
Right,
And he said, they care about alternative communication, transportation alleys. So if you're an alternative transportation alley, like people use it to commute to work, then Syracuse Department of Transportation will be supportive of your project in very, very financially beneficial ways.
interesting. And they
So-
Definitely use that to commute to work.
they might not be the only one.
For the grants, you mean?
Yeah.
But I was blown away that by Syracuse Department of Transportation wanted to put in a $3 million bridge over Route 13.
That's specifically, one of the specific goals of the overall Safe Streets for All program at the federal level is to make alternative methods of people getting to work.
Yeah.
And getting around, going wherever they need to go, so they are not driving.
Yeah, because I'm looking at those twists, and I'm like, how are we gonna make this wider? We're never gonna make this wider for a sidewalk. And I'm like, oh, that's right, we're never gonna make it wider, lay out our bridge. Anyway, that's all for me.
Thanks, Carol.
And then trolls can live under the bridge.
I may change my mind tonight. I'll call you at 3 in the morning and say, you know that.
That idea might be crazy enough to work.
Thanks, Carol. True.
Another for me, the dark drive, we're talking about sidewalks and other walkways. What's the status on that?
We're waiting, the RFP is out. We're waiting for bids.
Okay.
And the bids will be opened on the 12th or 13th.
All right.
So we will, at that point, the day before we meet for our meeting, hopefully we will have some numbers that we could start plugging in. We won't be required to have them all in by that day, but we will have the numbers.
And there's a placeholder in the budget for that now, or we just have
Yeah.
question marks?
Question marks.
Okay, all right, that's all I got, thanks.
Thanks, Drew. Susan?
Youth services met again. 2 positions are waiting to be filled. They have applicants, which is a plus, but they seem to be all very enthusiastic and positive about the way they're going, but again, waiting for budgets and all of that.
Right.
So, and Quio met with regard to trails. There was a presentation by, and I've forgotten his name, but all the potential trails that are being developed, but just not pedestrian work related, just, and Jonas Trail, where is that? Is that Black Chin, maybe? There's something,
I don't remember what road it's.
anyway, it's in
Sunset Drive or
the
something?
town of Lansing,
Yeah.
out in that area. So that sounds like I think I've walked that property in the past, years ago, and so there are nice places to walk for recreation purposes, perhaps not so much practical uses, but certainly timeout spaces. So, and their website is always just packed full of information, so that I send that on to you every time we get one.
Thank you.
And so, other than dredging Cuba Inlet, which somebody seems to be interested in doing, yeah.
Yeah, Jonas Falls is off at East Shore Circle,
Yeah,
the Gulf Creek, so it actually connects where Edwards, it's on the same creek as Edwards.
so they're very excited about that.
Yeah.
And that's under construction at the moment.
Yeah, there's a home that was built there, and I think the trail has been kind of
So
cut off to
the
the
home
falls.
is
Yeah,
condemned, and,
Wait, the new
oh, no,
home?
not the new one, the one that
No.
they've been working
Yeah, I was like,
for like 5 years.
What are we doing there?
Right next to the falls is a condemned home that they were trying to get the property title to.
Okay.
no,
Yeah, it was
this
a
is
brand
a
new
brand
home that
new-
overlooks
Okay.
the falls, but now it looks like
Okay.
you get on the trail,
looks
it's
very
it's
nice.
closed, and you can't walk to the falls or see the falls.
Anyway,
So that reminded me of the fact that you guys know I was trying to get the town of Lansing's Youth Services Commission to allow Village of Lansing children to apply for their jobs, to which they finally approved after a month. So now, just FYI, Village of Lansing youth who are looking for employment in the town are welcome to apply for their jobs as well.
but is that income based for the families? Because it
Not that I'm aware of.
seems like many of the programs that I hear about through your services, there's an income component to,
I wasn't, the kids I know who did jobs with the Youth Bureau were not asked that question.
that, I mean, that was sort of, oh,
But
Something I wasn't-
slightly different. They didn't mention that to me.
well, I mean, it could.
But also-
So many programs,
Yeah.
it's really hard.
And if there's
I
and/or
agree.
federal funded, there could be an income.
Or if it's a grant or not a grant.
It could be.
And it,
Yeah.
because I'm not in it, I'm just observing, it's a lot. And of course, they use acronyms. What does this stand for? And who's funding it? But I think the bottom line, there are a lot of opportunities from youth, for youth employment, from 14 to 17. But it's just finding the pathway and who helps these kids
Right.
when the parents don't have time, or other organizations don't have time, or guidance counselors, or moms and dads who have the wherewithal, to go and find these programs. So,
Have they resolved the transportation issue for?
and there's transportation issue.
Yeah, that's always been a big problem.
Transportation. There may be somebody out in Newfield, or somebody in Groton, or somebody somewhere. But, yeah, that's hard. Anyway,
Okay, all Susan?
that's it.
Wolfgang, do you have anything?
No, I have nothing.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's see. My agenda, okay. So that's all for the general discussion. We're going to have an executive session to discuss employee salaries. So I will move that we go into executive session. I need a second.
Second.
Agree with-
All
Thank
right,
you,
guys.
Gandhi. Thanks, John. So it's moved and seconded. All those in favor of going into executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
okay. So we will take a 5-minute break so we can get everyone off of Zoom who should not be in the executive session. I suspect there could be an action that we will take after executive session. So we would have to come back together.
You have to anyways to come out, and I gave you this.
Yeah.
This is the most-
We got it. I think it slipped into my, here we go, here we
I'm
go.
just gonna stop recording.
Thank you, Jody. The Village Board of Trustees, Village of Lansing Board of Trustees is coming out of executive session at approximately 10:04 PM. During our discussion, we came up with a resolution that Natalie has handwritten, and I will attempt to read one more time. This is a resolution that would authorize a one-time stipend to Mike Scott, who will be the acting fire inspector until our new budget cycle on June 1st, 2024. Be it resolved that the Village of Lansing Board of Trustees hereby appoints Michael Scott as acting Village of Lansing Fire Inspector effective immediately. And be it resolved that in consideration of the additional fire inspector duties performed by Michael Scott from January 2024 to May of 2024, The Village of Lansing Board of Trustees hereby authorizes a one-time stipend payment of $3,000. Would someone move that?
I'll move.
Carolyn moves.
Second.
Drew seconds. All those in favor of authorizing this one-time stipend, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye?
All right.
Okay. Thank you. And as a final step, I will motion that we adjourn.
Second.
Amazingly, Jody predicted this Susan actually second. All those in favor of adjourning for tonight, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Adjourning at 10:06 PM.
My goodness.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Wolfgang, you too. My goodness.
Oh, here's this guy's card, John Steinman, callers. You really want him to come?
As a starter discussion, find out what they
Yeah.
can and can't do. We're just kind of assuming what they can and can't do, so we will just find a time,
Okay.
maybe not
Third budget.
after budget or toward the end of the budget, things will quieten down just a little bit.
Aye.
Stop the recording.
Have a good night.